In a toxic family, language isn't used for connection. It is used for control. As the black sheep, you have been cast as the container for the family's unacknowledged shadows, where your self-respect is treated as a threat and your intelligence as a liability. Tonight, we are going to dismantle the psychological architecture behind their favorite insults. We will explore these verbal traps, the hidden motives behind them, and, most importantly, the expert-backed strategies you can use to reclaim your reality. By understanding the mechanical purpose of these words, you can finally stop reacting to their script and start writing your own. Toxic insult number 1. You're too proud. This insult is typically weaponized the moment you exhibit a healthy level of self-respect by refusing to perform a task or accept a role that strips away your dignity. Imagine a scenario where you are expected to apologize for something you didn't do. When you say no, the response is immediate. You think you're better than us. You're just too proud. In a toxic family, having boundaries is twisted into the sin of pride, as the system relies on you playing an unequal or lesser role to remain stable. They want you to feel that your self-worth is an act of aggression against the family. Dr. Ramani Duvasula, a licensed clinical psychologist and author specializing in narcissistic abuse, explains that in such systems, a victim's autonomy is viewed as a personal affront. She suggests that you do not defend, engage, explain, or personalize. When called proud, do not try to prove your humility. Instead, calmly restate your position. I am not willing to do that. Keep it short and simple, and repeat it. This protects you from participating in toxic arguments. Toxic insult number 2. You're not normal. Toxic families often treat the black sheep in an inherently abnormal way, withholding basic empathy, gaslighting memories of shared events, or creating a fake, villainized role for you to inhabit, yet they expect you to maintain the facade of a perfectly normal family relationship. When you naturally pull away or choose low contact to preserve your sanity, they use your distance as evidence that you are the one who is broken. This is a profound insult to your intelligence, because it asks you to ignore the reality of their abnormality and blame yourself for your basic survival instincts. Dr. Gabor Mate, a physician and expert on the relationship between trauma and health, argues that what toxic families label as abnormal behavior is actually a normal adaptation to an abnormal amount of environmental stress. Your distance is not a symptom of a disease, it is the beginning of a cure. The strategy Dr. Mate advocates recognize that trying to appear normal to a dysfunctional group requires suppressing your true self. The strategy is to accept that being abnormal, in their eyes, is actually the ultimate proof of your recovery. When they label you as not normal, mentally translate it to, I am no longer vibrating at the frequency of this dysfunction. Toxic insult number 3. It happened a long time ago. This functions as a secondary defense. When you bring up past harms in an attempt to find closure or demand accountability, they immediately claim you are the problem for not moving on. Imagine trying to explain how a childhood event like DV shaped your current trust issues, only to be met with, it happened a long time ago. This is a tactical move to set an arbitrary expiration date on your pain, suggesting that the passage of time somehow erases the responsibility for the damage they caused. It frames your memory as a flaw rather than their behavior as the root cause of the current challenges. Dr. Susan Ford, a pioneer in the study of toxic parenting and author of Toxic Parents, describes this behavior as minimization. She notes that, by framing the abuse as ancient history, the toxic person effectively invalidates the victim's current emotional reality. Dr. Forward recommends non-defensive communication. You do not need them to agree on the timeline of your pain for your pain to be valid. They do not get to be the perpetrator and the judge at the same time. Only you can determine the extent of damages from their actions. These toxic individuals tend to never accept responsibility for their bad behavior, but that doesn't mean you can't hold them accountable. Toxic insult number 4. You're not ready. This is a direct insult to your abilities, ideas, and interests, used specifically to limit your opportunities to explore your potential. Imagine sharing your excitement about a new job opportunity or a plan to move to a new city, only to be told, you aren't ready. They move quickly to dampen your enthusiasm by suggesting you lack the maturity or skill to succeed. The strategy is circular. They limit your resources and sabotage your confidence. And then, after you haven't succeeded, they claim you are worthless because you have no results. This ensures you stay small and under their influence. Alice Miller, a world-renowned psychoanalyst who explored the lifelong effects of childhood trauma, argued that toxic parents often colonize the child's mind. By convincing the adult child they are not ready for independence, the parent ensures the child remains a permanent satellite to the parent's needs. The strategy Miller advocated for the internal advocate. Seek out a witness, a friend, mentor, or therapist who can see your true potential. Use their objective feedback to override the family's narrative. The goal is to act despite the feeling of being unready, proving your readiness to yourself through action, rather than seeking a permission that will never come. Toxic insult number 5. Leave the room. This is more than a simple request for space. It is a tactical insult to your sense of belonging within the family tribe. This is a tool of isolation meant to make you feel small and invisible, reinforcing the idea that you are a secondary character in the family story. Dr. Kipling Williams, a professor of psychological sciences who specializes in the study of ostracism, has shown that social exclusion and being sent away triggers the same neural pathways as physical pain. In toxic systems, this is a calculated form of domestic control. The strategy, Dr. Williams' research suggests, self-affirmation. When excluded, do not beg to be let back in or argue for your right to stay. Instead, use the forced distance to reconnect with your own values and a social circle that actually values you. Recognize that their exclusion is actually a gift of forced boundaries, giving you the space to exist and breathe without their critical, judgmental gaze. Toxic insult number 6. Why are you eating that? This insult occurs when you choose a menu item, a dietary preference, or a lifestyle choice that deviates from the family's collective script. It might seem small, but it is a pervasive form of micromanagement where even your plate is seen as territory to be judged. The question is meant to make you feel self-conscious and different in a negative way. In a toxic family, individuality is viewed as a threat to their control, and by questioning your smallest personal preferences, they attempt to chip away at your confidence in your own agency. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, a clinical psychologist specializing in adult children of emotionally immature parents, notes that such intrusive judgment is a primary trait of parents who cannot tolerate any deviation from their own worldview. The strategy, Dr. Gibson suggests, observation and detachment. Treat their comment like a weather report. something that is happening but doesn't require your emotional involvement. Offer a short, boring answer, because I like it. Do not explain the health benefits or your reasons. Providing information gives them more hooks to criticize you. Toxic insult number 7. You will never amount to anything. Typically issued as a final curse when you set a boundary or go no contact. This is a direct insult to your growth and your future potential. Imagine the moment you tell them to leave your room or your house because you do not want to engage in their nonsensical arguments, and they respond with, "You will never amount to anything." They want you to believe that you are permanently damaged or tethered to their dysfunction. It is a desperate attempt to exert control over your future by defining your identity as permanently broken and incapable of change. Shannon Thomas, a licensed clinical social worker and trauma researcher, identifies this as a form of psychological mapping. She explains that abusers use this tactic to define the victim's future boundaries in their mind. Thomas recommends future casting. Actively visualize and document your life away from them, your new home, your new peace, your new friends. A good sign that shows you are healing and moving forward is when you do not have to prove anything to them. That behavior is validation seeking, which they programmed in your system. Instead, ask yourself what would make you happy, even if nobody was looking. This is true individuation. Toxic insult number 8. It was your fault. The toxic system excels at forcing you into decisions or situations you do not want to participate in, only to blame you when things inevitably go wrong. If you are pressured into a career choice, a specific move, or a relationship that fails, they will point the finger and claim your poor choices were the cause. However, if that same forced action happens to succeed, they will happily step forward to take the credit for guiding you to success. This ensures you are the scapegoat for every failure, while they remain the hero of every success. Dr. Stephen Stosny, a therapist specializing in emotional abuse, identifies this as responsibility shifting. He notes that the abuser assigns the weight of failure to the victim to protect their own ego, while absorbing any positive outcome as their own. The strategy, Dr. Stosny suggests, self-compassion and fact-checking. When blame is assigned to you, walk through the chain of events objectively. If you were pressured into the decision, explicitly state to yourself, "I acted under duress, and the outcome is a result of that pressure." Refuse to accept the emotional weight of a failure that was never truly your choice to begin with. Toxic insult number 9. It's your life. This is the height of gaslighting, usually delivered after years of the family controlling your moves and sabotaging your confidence. Suddenly, when you face a challenge that they helped engineer, they act as though you have been operating with total freedom all along. Well, it's your life. You made the choices. It is an insult to your sense of reality that ignores the obstacles and interference they put in your path, allowing them to dodge accountability for the state of your life while pretending they are simply respecting your autonomy. Bessel van der Kolk, a leading psychiatrist and author of The Body Keeps the Score, explains that denying the impact of an abusive environment is a form of profound gaslighting. The strategy, van der Kolk emphasizes somatic awareness. When they deny the past, check in with your body's physical reaction, the tightness in your chest or the shaking in your hands. Use that physical sensation as your truth meter. The strategy is to stop debating the past with them and focus on healing the trauma stored in your nervous system. Your body knows the truth, and focusing on your physical recovery allows you to move forward regardless of their denial. Toxic insult number 10. Are you stupid? This is an indirect way of calling someone stupid, but by phrasing it as a question, the speaker leaves themselves room to claim they weren't being directly insulting. However, since there is no informative answer to that question, the individual asking it is simply looking for a way to devalue your intelligence and make you feel inferior. It is a rhetorical jab designed to shut down your logic and make you second-guess your own capacity to reason. Dr. Lindsay Gibson observes that rhetorical insults of this nature are intended to cause internalized shame. By repeatedly questioning the victim's basic competence, the toxic individual makes the victim easier to manage and less likely to trust their own perceptions. The strategy, Dr. Gibson suggests, maintaining intellectual autonomy. Recognize that their question is an admission of their own emotional immaturity